National Fire Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the National Fire Radio podcast, a podcast that is designed to talk about the job. I'm the luckiest guy alive. I get to interview the coolest people out there in the American Fire Service and talk about the job. Everything from guys riding backwards, officers, chiefs, up through companies, people, manufacturers, products, organizations, you name it. We're trying to capture the stories to promote the job and make the job better. So if you're returning and you're a regular listener, thank you. If you're new to the podcast, check it out and let us know what you think. Podcast at nationalfireradio.com is where you can find us. Send us an email. Let us know what you think about the show, people that you think might be a good guest, or anything else that you want to talk about. Send it over to podcast at nationalfireradio.com. We'd love to hear from you. And what we get to do is bring forth the word about the job. But in order to do that, we need the help of some sponsors. So do me a favor, hang tight, and listen to the words from a few of our sponsors. This episode's brought to you by Box Alarm Grills. When your apparatus arrives on scene, are you making the best showing? Looking to set your rig apart from everyone else? Want your engine, truck, or rescue to be easily identifiable? There is a solution. With large aluminum grill numbers and full-width rear mud flaps from Box Alarm Grills. Formed by Danny and a team of fellow firefighters, Box Alarm Grills gets it. They know what it means to show pride in your ride, delivering the quality construction and design that fire departments demand. That's why their grill numbers and mud flaps grab attention, enhance visibility, and make your fleet recognizable on scene while responding or just driving around town. Built in the USA by a family-owned business, Box Alarm Grills is quickly becoming the choice of fire companies, apparatus planners, and fire truck manufacturers with out-of-the-box or custom solutions. Check out functional, durable grill numbers and mud flaps from Box Alarm Grills today at boxalarmgrills.com and on Facebook and Instagram. And like Danny and his crew like to say, add pride to your ride. Taylor's Tins. Taylor and his team have been manufacturing aluminum helmet fronts since 2017 with over 200,000 shields in the market. Taylor's Tins is a leader in the American Fire Service helmet front space. Not only do they manufacture helmet fronts, but they do so much more. Locker tags, key chains, CO monitor charts, medical kit charts, pump charts, banquet awards, you name it, they do it. Go over to taylorstins.com and check out what they can offer you today. They've become a longtime sponsor and good friend of the National Fire Radio podcast, and because of that, they offer a promo code at checkout. So when you go to taylorstins.com, enter NFR Sent Me. That is NFR Sent Me, and you'll get 15% off your checked out order. It works on all stock items from taylorstins.com, including quick tins, license plates, locker tags, and much, much more. Exclusions do apply. This is a company that prides themselves on quality and customer service. From the inception, from your design to out the door, it's within 48 hours. Nobody else is doing that. They can't do that. 48 hours to get your shield out the door to you, to put it on your helmet, and get to the next job. Anyway, check out taylorstins.com. Again, that's taylorstins.com. Check out their latest offerings and use promo code NFR Sent Me. That's NFR Sent Me for 15% off on your checkout. And in the words of Taylor and his crew, stop burning up leather.
What's funny, and I think about your shirt here, I can take in, if you say Huber, I can name all those guys.
Yep.
If you say Miami Township, I can name all those guys.
I love that.
You know,
That's awesome.
and that's why I like this shirt so much, because it's
Thank
like,
you.
oh yeah,
That's
that's
cool.
this guy, that's this guy, that's that guy, you know, or
There's still plenty of available on the store if anybody's listening.
today only. But and even at FDIC Firehouse, and
Yeah.
I can name these guys, which to me, you know, like I said, that's why I like the shirt so much.
I love
So-
that, man. That really paints a picture, though, about the type of career you have and the investment you put in and the return you got, too, to make those friendships. And, Dave, you're the type of guy, you know, when we met, I'm very passionate, very into the job. And we're going to get into a lot of your teaching and instructing and the different groups and so on. But, you know, when we met, like, you could just tell, like, when you meet certain people, there's just a real love for the job. And then And then not only do they have a love for the job, but they have a love for the job, but the people that make the job good.
Hey everybody, it's Rob, National Fire Radio, with my friend Jeremy Donch.
Hey guys.
And we have with us a very special guest tonight, the OG himself, David Gallagher. All right, the man, the myth, the legend. We have referred to him in many of our podcasts, and I am very excited to have him here. I've met him through our contacts with On Scene Training and Justice Network. I actually got to see Dave teach down in Thibodaux, Louisiana, which was just very insightful for me. And it's tonight's going to bring a lot of good insight to who he is and who we've been referring to as the OG. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
He's chuckling already. Dave, that's quite the intro, brother.
Yeah. Well, thank
Dave,
you.
I just personally want to hop into and say thanks.
Don't forget to tip your waitress.
I will say that, Rob and I, we cherish your friendship, and you have been a supporter of National Fire Radio and what we've been doing from day one. And I just personally want to thank you for that. And I am so excited to have you here tonight. For the 2 years that we've known each other since we started, and that's really when our friendship started, I really don't know your story. And so I'm excited tonight. I know pieces of it, and I know a lot of the connections and the matchmaker that you are. But I would love to really get into the story and really hear where it all started. And maybe you could take us down that road. Maybe give us a little bit of background about yourself for our listeners to understand your pedigree and where you came from.
Sure. Well, let me say, gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm glad you allayed my fears by telling me you weren't down at the bottom of the list and didn't have anybody else to contact.
But no, they just weren't getting back to us, Dave.
Okay, that's all. Okay, fair enough. No, thank you, gentlemen. I one of the things that I think is cool, I hear these young guys say, "Hey, you've ever heard of that National Fire Radio?" Why? Yes, I have. And they and a little shout out to a friend of mine from the National Fire Academy that I introduced to you when we had the thing in Massachusetts out there in Framingham. One of the guys on the RIP program, Jay Lucier, and I was like, "Hey, you want to meet Jeremy?" He said, "I felt like a 14-year-old girl."
Oh, come on. That's outrageous.
Oh, but you guys are the miracle of social media, being able to get a message out, and an honest and true message, like you said, solid brothers doing solid things, with all of the static and chaff, and us old guys are like, what is the big deal? What's going on here? Type of thing. You guys bringing that to the table is huge. And personally, thank you for letting me be on here.
Oh, of course, man.
Thank you for the hard work that the two of you do. And I think one of the things that always struck me is you get out and get into it. You put your hands on it. You touch it. You show it. It's like down in Thibodaux with Rob. He's right there, and he's, and he could say anything in the world, but being able to take the information, and I got to tell you, there is not a doubt in my mind, Jeremy, the things you show with the apparatus and the little innovations here and the little innovations there, I'm telling you, there are drills running in diamond plate all over this country because you took the time to show this. It's like, we really need to try this type of thing because it would work for us. So I think you guys do an amazing job. I truly, truly do. And I am so flattered to be here.
You're
truly,
great.
I am.
Listen, the kind words, I mean, we can stroke each other all night here, brother, but I'm telling you, I'm flattered and honored that you have such kind words for us. And I think,
especially after you've been out drinking with us. I mean,
I think one of the biggest things for me and Rob too, because we talk about, obviously we live with this, we do this every day, but for guys like you who come from maybe the old school of thought before me, right? You're the generation prior to me and Rob and so on, is a lot of what we do today, you guys take for granted or took for granted back then because that was so commonplace. And I think today we're finding that, you know, I found this hole in my generation where we were starting to lose touch with the values of what we expected of each other in the fire service. And so to start this page was really to emulate your generation and the generation prior. And hopefully going forward, we can still instill those values into the newer generation of what Dave, guys like you and Mike Dugan and so many good friends just take for granted every day.
Well, and absolutely, couldn't have said it better myself. You guys are you're bringing the solid message. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but
Yeah.
you know, I come from the generation of the fire's in that room. You advance a hose line, you get the doors open, you get the place opened up, you go and you put the fire out. That's it.
Right.
You know, the keep it simple, stupid type of thing. So, you know,
which is getting lost.
And we'll get into that.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Absolutely.
So let's start at the beginning, Dave. Like, I mean, where did you start your career at in the fire service? Where did you get that initial bug?
I have to go back to probably when I was, I'm going to say 8, 9 years old. My grandfather, Charles Chick Gallagher, was a firefighter in the city of Dayton, Ohio, 1916 and 1946. Originally drove team for a steamer, which was really cool. And then when they went motorized.
When you say drove team, that means
horses.
Horses.
Yeah, horses. Yep. Gave them somebody to talk to. You know, they worked 6 days in a row. We're off one. They lived in their district, so they walked to work because nobody had cars. If they had to go somewhere else, they would hop on the trolley, you know, the streetcar, flash their badge, and go wherever they had to go. By all accounts, Chick was a pretty powerful Jake. You know, he was, as a human being, I've heard a lot of stories of what he was. Let's say he was a better fireman than he was a person. It's funny. One of my dearest and best friends was talking to a long retired Dayton fireman. And one of my best friends, John Perry, was saying, oh, he says, yeah, you know, says a friend of mine says his grandfather was on the job, like back in the day, maybe, you know, right before you were probably getting on, right before he was getting off. And the guy said, oh yeah, who was that? And he said, oh, Chick Gallagher. He said the guy's eyes got real wide. He turned around and walked away. Wouldn't talk to him anymore. I'm like, that is a great story.
Oh man.
And then my dad was could have walked on the city of Dayton, easy enough, legacy. But back then, you know, post World War II, he didn't want the hours that they were still working. I think it was 5 and 2 or 5 and 3 back then. And he, you know, he took his GI Bill, did some other things, and went to work for Frigidaire. But he was, and I heard these stories, by all accounts, an amazing, you know, hardcore fireman. And I remember buffing jobs with him. We had this old green, what was it called? It was a radio. I mean, you had to tune it in. It wasn't a scanner or anything. You had to tune it in. And, you know, hot, humid nights, we could get Cincinnati, for crying out loud. I actually listened to the big fire down in Cincinnati, the Supper Club. Slips my mind right now, the history. Listen to that fire. You know,
what are we talking, like 60s, 70s?
70s. Where all those people perished, yeah. John Davidson, I know, was a headliner there, but down in
the
Southgate,
Beverly Hills
Kentucky.
Supper Club, right?
Beverly Hills Supper Club, Southgate, Kentucky, right? Listen to that, believe it or not, that far away. But we would buff fires, and you ask where it started, and I can tell you, I can't give you the date, and I can't give you the street address, but it was a multi-alarm fire in the city of Dayton. My dad still knew a couple of guys, so we could get a little closer than most people, you know, him and his little kid, me. I was probably 8, 9, I don't remember. maybe even younger than that. But I would help roll hose and a lot of cotton jacketed 2.5 back in the day. But I remember watching this fire and these guys coming out, and they had just taken a trimming. They were just covered from head to toe. And I was standing there watching, and this one guy, and I don't know whether he knew my dad or not, but he walks over, goes past, the canteen truck, everything else, comes over to where I'm standing, takes this filthy glove, pats me on the shoulder, and says, "Hey, how you doing, kid?" That's what started my career as a firefighter. And I remember that like it was yesterday.
That's awesome, because that's something that like gets lost today. And I always tell guys, we're at Home Depot or we're out with the engine, and there's a kid there walking by. You ask that parent if they want to have, if they want their kid to hop up in the fire engine or
Absolutely,
and get that picture, because you never know what spark you're gonna ignite there with somebody into this world. It could very much be the person who's going to replace us in 20 years, and
absolutely.
It all starts with that, because this is the only industry I think where people have that kind of, or it's one of the few industries where there's that kind of connection of somebody being able to say like, yeah, here you go.
Oh, absolutely.
And
you're 100%
kids hold on to that memory, so that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, like, for me, I mean, it is like mid to late 80s, early 90s, New York City was my influence. And it was, long coats, roll up boot, hip boots,
yeah, baby.
cigarettes hanging out of their mouth. And when you talk about this guy coming out, right, Dave, the experience you had where he comes out and takes his dirty glove and just puts it on your shoulder. I remember as a kid looking at, buffing fires with my father and seeing videos or news. Like usually it was the nightly news, right? And it was like you see these guys just coming out of these buildings, and they are just, men of steel, right? I mean, they're Superman. And as a kid, I remember being so influenced by that, saying like, that's the type of guy I want to be. That guy, he's just, mightier than mighty, And I think the imagery of that is so important to drive home how big this job is and what type of fireman or firefighter do you want to be. When you have influences like that, like I always think like, am I letting my guys down? And sometimes I do. Sometimes I can't be that senior guy that I've always wanted to be because, time restrictions, or I'm just not there enough now. And, there's all those things. But on the other end, it's like when I am there, am I putting in the time and resembling those guys that I looked up to? And I think that's so important to have that imagery as a focal point of how you want to be in your career.
Well, a class that I put together here a while back kind of speaks to that. And back in the day, like when Report from Engine Company 82 came out by Dennis Smith, there was a photographer named Joe Friedman.
Yes.
And I want to say that was probably 75, 76. I can't remember when her book came out, but it was called Firehouse. It's like a coffee table book.
I know it.
And to me, if anybody that wants to get into this job would just read the introduction, that's all. Just read the introduction that she puts in there. And we'll probably get into this later, but I actually attached that to another group of people who I've become associated with that I see a lot of commonality with.
Yeah.
And those of you who know I'm big into rodeo, and especially the professional bull riders. And I am very honored and blessed and proud to say one of the top cowboy protection bullfighters, Frank Newsom, and the PBR were friends. I took his class a few years ago and learned how to fight bulls.
That's
but
cool.
there's a lot of commonality between what they do and what we do. But anyway, going back, after that moment, and like you said, the fire trucks, all this, that, and the other, I want to say my sophomore year. I had been a Boy Scout a long time in a scout troop, and then discovered Explorers. And when I discovered Explorers, I discovered that you can have an Explorer post for just about every vocation out there. It could be journalism. It could be, I don't know, auto mechanic. You could, as long as it was legitimized, past the litmus test of everything. And there were several fire and rescue Explorer posts. I said, we need to start one of these. So I got 5 of my friends, and so we met the quorum for the number for the post, and my mom and dad were the first advisors. We got a couple other advisors on board. At one time, I think we had 30 active members. We participated in tornadoes. We participated in multiple alarm fires. We made coffee. We rolled hose. We filled air bottles.
This is what, 15, 16 years old?
Yes. Yeah. We got our EMT actually at 16. And some of us got, back in the day in the state of Ohio, there was this 36-hour trade and industrial program. And kind of like 2 karate lessons, just enough to make you dangerous.
Yeah, right.
So you knew which end of the nozzle the water came out of, and which way to climb the ladder. So we start on Explorer posts, Miami Township Fire and Rescue Explorer Post 922. I remember that this day because that was their the number on their call sign when you used to have to do the the FCC radio check or whatever. We had advisors and helpers from the ranks of the fire department. We actually ran on a non-emergency basis. They let us use this just old, gorgeous, low-top Cadillac ambulance.
How cool.
Back in the day. And one of the things we would do is we would do hospital transfers. If somebody needed a ride home from the hospital, we had one of the adult firefighters. They had to be an EMT or paramedic. Well, EMT, I should say, at the time, and they had to drive, obviously, because they were licensed. And we would do that, and we would set up whether it was a canteen type of thing or whatever, but we were always involved. They permitted us to come in on their trainings.
Nice.
And all
Which
that.
I gotta think set the stage, right?
Oh, it did. And the best part about this is I'm going to go out on a limb here, and my numbers could be way off. But I remember, I believe, by the time all of us had, grown too old for it, so to speak, and was looking forward, I want to say like 90% of our members were either firefighters, search and rescue people, RNs, something in that. I think we even had a couple of cops, but it at least, set the stage for all of that. And it was pretty amazing. And then when I started to get into it, we're talking back in the days of Johnny and Roy, man, in KMG 365,
KMG 365.
And I remember, dude, I got my paramedic and we were doing intercardiac sticks. You want some fun? Pulp Fiction got nothing on us.
When did you become a medic, Dave?
I became a medic in 1977.
Huh.
All I know I found my old original paramedic card, and it was in the low 4 digits for the state of Ohio, which we got a lot of people. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty cool.
Wow.
But that was back in the day.
So where did we go from there? So Miami Township, right? That's where the Explorer post, and then I'm assuming you were starting to ride the back step there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was cool. I had a 1967 Ford Mustang, and the people who are geeks for lights and sirens and stuff, I had my Federal Director, and I had my big 184 4-beam light on top of those big 4-beam 184 lights on top of that little Mustang.
It drew so much power his headlights didn't work.
Yeah, they used to say you could pick up the light and watch the car spin around.
I like that.
But I had it endeared me to the volunteer fire service forever. And that particular group, we had a parade piece that won every year. The stuff we would do with it. We had these old 61 and 63 Porsches, conventional cabs, but it taught me the value of, and that's, I think, where I learned the comradeship and the brotherhood part of it back in the day. Because there was certainly a older group and a younger group, and there was some bumping heads.
Usually it is. But I think the stage has to get set for guys when they're younger, so that as they go on in their career, whether they stay in that same department or they move on, if your first interactions are not what is desired, you're going to have a tough time adapting as you go on.
100%.
Yeah.
And you go back to the volunteer ranks, and one of the things I cite is the volunteers, they don't have to be there. If they get treated poorly, it's like, I got stuff to do. See you, bye. So it takes a special group leading that volunteer contingent to make it palatable, to make it worthwhile, and whatever psychology thing you want to do, the need to feel needed. So, and that's a lot of participation. So
then I'm assuming from there, your volunteer days, I'm assuming the bug was in you, because I know that you certainly became a career fireman, and your passion and made it a career, which, what was that, Wayne Township, which then became Huber Heights, correct?
Correct. And going back to something we had talked about a little bit before in back to the Miami Township days,
Sure.
My first work in fire was with them.
Yeah, talk about that.
We were up all night. We'd had a really bad, I joined, my 18th birthday was on a Friday, so I couldn't get sworn in until Monday. So that would have been the 18th. And then, a couple of this, couple of that, all this, that, and the other. And then the night before I graduate high school, we had this major grinding auto accident on the interstate right next to my high school. So they're cutting a guy out of a semi all night back in the day. And we're talking before the days of even hearse tools. I mean, We're talking Blackhawk porta powers. We're talking air chisels.
Yep.
Yeah. Saws, and all that back in the day. So we're up all night. I think I got home at 4 a.m. Then bang, the old Plectron. If you remember the suitcase radios, the Plectron goes around 5:45 for a work and fire. And remembering these guys are volunteers, they're getting ready to leave for their day jobs,
Sure.
their real jobs. And we had this thing where the first person at the station drove, the second person at the station, no matter who, rode up front.
Right.
Third person rode the back step, and if you were fortunate enough to go from there. I was the second person. So I'm riding up front. I have little to no actual experience. We crest this one intersection, look up the hill. Oh boy, we got to work and fire. So yeah, go on the scene. The lieutenant was third. So he's riding the back step. I'm trying to babble on this radio, right?
Right.
I get off the rig going, I'm like wound up, like, woo!
Sure.
And he's stretching off. I throw my mask on, everything. I got no air. I'm sucking my mask to my face, I'm on my knees in the front yard, sucking my mask to the face. And I see him going by, and he turns around and looks, and I'm like,
Yeah. What am I doing wrong here?
He goes, turn your bottle on.
There
He
you
never
go.
heard my bell go off, so he knew he didn't.
Yep.
Hey, boom. And off we went in, and we made the hallway. This bedroom was ripping. It was meeting us down the hallway, 1.5 Akron dial of gallons, 95 GPM,
Yep.
3/4 boots, no hood, orange rubber gloves. I think I had a Nomex coat, and yeah. And if I'd have got burned, I probably wouldn't even known.
Oh my God, that's
The
it,
adrenaline was pumping.
You're through the roof. Yeah. That's what a great introduction though, right? I mean, you were around it, but then to get your first run like that, I mean, that is just awesome.
Yeah. And so then we get back to quarters, and it's cleanup. We had a lot of overhaul. We got to clean up a lot, right? And my dad's there, and the station chief says, "You can go ahead and leave." And I said, "I can't leave." And he says, "Well, you've got graduation rehearsal you need to be at." And by like 8:00, right?
Right.
And I said, "No," I said, "I can't leave." And he's like, "No," he says, "You need to go." I didn't shower. I didn't, nothing. So go to this, this auditorium and sit down between two girls who were like National Honor Society girls.
Right, all done up, right? Yeah.
Bad. Thank heavens it was, it was just a rehearsal, but yeah, it was, yeah, that was the first go round. And then, a few more after that. And then in 78, I left there, got my first full-time job, tested at City of Fairborn, Ohio, where Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is.
Hey, what was the hiring process like in 78? I mean, was it civil?
Written test. No, it wasn't civil service. It's just,
okay.
It's weird. I've been going through a bunch of stuff we're trying to clear out. I found the copy of what you expect the physical agility test was going to be.
Okay.
What you could train for.
Yeah.
So it was a written test and then a physical agility test.
Gotcha.
And stayed there a year.
How was the job was it in high demand in 78?
That was a very interesting time. There were, and you being familiar with New York City, when was the strike? I don't remember. 75?
Yeah, it was late 70s or?
70s, yeah. A lot of people, had, it had been shut down, proposition, whatever, here, there, and whatever.
Right.
A lot of places were shutting down, no hiring, they were laying off. I tried
66.
Wasn't there another one?
That was that was transit strike.
I thought there was one in the 70s.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It did. It was late 70s. I just don't remember when.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I could be wrong. So somebody listening will probably know better than me. But nobody was hiring. None of the big cities were hiring. But
right.
What was going on was the demand for EMS. That was huge. The the Johnny and Roy thing, the evolution. Sure. Well, they have paramedics. Why don't we have paramedics? And the curious part of all this was City of Dayton, Ohio, was the last place, I believe, arguably, in Montgomery County to get paramedics. They got EMTs, but they didn't get medics. So you had all these suburban departments around them that had, that were getting medics.
Yeah.
I think it was a 200-hour course we took back in the day. I remember going on a run, calling the hospital, having an acute MI patient, just begging for everything we could put into him. And the doc on the other end said, start a D5W IV and transport. I said, they're symptomatic, they're crashing. The massive chest pain, they're sweating like crazy. Can I give them some nitro? Nope. So there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
And we argued a lot with a lot of ER nurses back in the day. But be that as it may, it certainly has evolved to something pretty amazing. And, I hear Rob and I hear, a number of people that are doing EMS today. And it's like, this is some crazy stuff, but that was one of the things in the suburbs. There was a lot of suburbs hiring because they wanted to evolve from volunteer staffing to full-time.
Right.
And then they started doing that, and there was a lot of the, 9 to 6, 8 to 5 and then the volunteers would cover at night. And then they started bringing in part-time, and then some places started doing 24/48s. That's what Dayton did, so that's kind of what everybody followed. So,
Nice.
yeah, I got on at the Heights, Wayne Township in July of '79, and went through November of '04. So,
What
Do you
type
remember?
Go ahead, bro.
Do you remember your first impression that day of walking into Firehouse, coming from the volunteer ranks? Now you're walking into the Heights. Like, was it? Like,
well,
were there
I went
those
from the
senior guys?
volleys. I went from the volleys to Fairborn, and it was very different. They hadn't hired anybody new in quite a while, and 3 of us got hired, 1 for each shift. These were some old school dudes, man. My lieutenant never wore a pack, and usually when you were banked down to the floor, he was smoking a cigarette right next to you. I mean, he was like one of the guys in report. Oh yeah. He was like one of the guys in report from Engine Company 82. And that's where I met, everybody says they have a best friend. Well, I'm God's blessed me with a couple of best friends. Like I said, John Perry before, he helped me raise my kids. Mikey Mall, task force leader for the Ohio Task Force. He was on the Heights. He was at the Trade Center and all that. And somebody you probably have heard of in passing, a guy named Bob Swick in the Bob Swick ladder drag.
Yeah,
And
yep.
despite what anybody says, Bobby invented that back in the day, back in the 70s, out of necessity. Ran a one-man ladder company for years and years and years, and that's what he started doing.
Right.
And I know a lot of people have claimed that, but that belongs to him. And then the video that I'm confident you guys have seen, Baby Chelsea, where the guy shows at the window with the baby and hands it out to the guy, and that's Bob Swick. That is one of my best and dearest friends. That's where I met Bob, and that's where we became friends. We had a recall one night, big old 2-story Victorian, High Street. I can even remember that, the High Street fire. Recalled, dead of winter, everything was freezing. We even had plectrons, even though we were full-time for the recalls. Plectron pops off, recall fire, report to the scene. And they didn't do that very often. He'd usually report to the station, So went to the scene, and this place is, oh man, it's pushing smoke like hot fudge. Not a lot of flame, but this thing, it would have been a classic for Dave Dodson and Art of Reading Smoke, or now Phil Josie saying, okay, tell me about this. And you're going, oh, this thing was just,
right.
And you kind of went, type of thing. What was going on was the second floor had been illegally subdivided.
Right.
They put partition walls, right? And the fire is in these bedrooms. You can't see it from the hallway, type of thing. So the crews were going in front door, straight up the stairs to the second floor, but they couldn't make the turn because it's blowing over their heads. So they can't make the turn. And even if they could, they couldn't get to the seat of the fire. So you were kind of spitting into the wind, so to speak, right? So Bob is like, all right, there was a ladder, and I hope I do remember this correctly, Delta side, second floor. And there were some Fairborn explorers with an 1.5 inch playing water through this window. It was all smoke. There was no fire. And he's like, what are you doing with that? And they're like, and Bob's a force to be reckoned with. I mean, you look in the dictionary under salt. Yeah, his picture's there. And he starts up the ladder, and I'm like, I can't let him go alone. So he gets to the top of the ladder, and it's just crap pushing out of this window. Neither one of us have air packs because, one, either the air ran out, or in the old days, 70s, the packs were frozen. The exhalation valves were all frozen up. Right Pat Fire was there. They're trying to get stuff done, fill a bunch of bottles. Well, Bob's like having none of this. So I follow him up the ladder going, this is what my old man want me to do. And we're up there. He rolls the window and goes in. And I'm like, aha. Showtime.
Yep.
Either you do or you don't.
That's right.
Like, oh man, I can't believe I'm doing this. I roll the window and go in, and I get hooked on what's left of a sofa, springs and crap. And I'm like dragging this sofa across the hall. And he's like, give me more line. And I'm like, wait a minute. You know.
Oh my gosh.
We drag some more line, and I finally get loose of the sofa. I'm hollering at the cadets, more line, more line. And what happened was he got down far enough, we're pushing in far enough, where he could get the fire knocked back into one or two rooms so that crews with packs could finally get up and make the turn and get in. Now, he puts the line down. He and I both walk down the stairs and out the front door. And I was like, well, that was pretty cool. So, yeah. But
I can only imagine the faces of the guys that have been trying to get up the stairs
yeah.
for 20 minutes, right?
But the thing is, if you knew Swick, they weren't surprised at all.
Right.
It was like, yep.
But even so, man. And then, and then to be a part of that, like that's.
Oh, yeah. It was huge.
You know?
It was huge.
Yeah, that's cool. But
Yeah,
and for you, though, that's a gut check, too, man. I mean, that was you know,
I blew black crap out of my nose for a week.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
I went back to the station, and my coat was a teepee.
Yeah.
It was that frozen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was great. That's great.
That's pretty wild. I have to think, though, over your 26 years in Huber Heights, I mean, I'm sure you've had not just the cast of characters to fight fires with, but you've had some crazy jobs you've been a part of, too, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the Heights was the administration from the Heights actually came out of a suburb in Franklin County, which is in Columbus. And I will say at the time, Franklin County and the city of Columbus was very forward thinking. They were the first county that I knew of that started a countywide numbering system, that started automatic mutual aid. They were very aggressive as paramedics. I mean, these people were innovating and doing stuff that everybody else was, or they were, let's just say they were doing some very, in their purview, right, in their protocols, but very aggressive stuff that Montgomery County hadn't quite gotten to yet. And I think that's because, you had Ohio State there, you had, Go Bucks, for you Michigan fans. You had a lot of, just a lot more forward thinking, I think, from the city of Columbus. But there was no doubt that had an influence on our organization and our department. My chief at the time, my late chief at the time, really started pushing for automatic mutual aid. It was
how big of a department was Huber Heights?
At one time, I think we had, when I started there, we had 20, but we had 80 part-time.
Okay.
So you would have a core group of 2 or 3 career guys, and then you'd have 2 or 3 part-time guys.
So it was like two and two, 3 and 2. Like what was?
There were nights I could put 2 on the medic, 3 on the engine, and 3 on the truck.
Okay.
Or if we were, and I also had, when I became a lieutenant, I also had the latitude that if something sounded good, I could kind of mix and match for whatever. But it was the first department that I was involved with that ran a dedicated truck company, 24/7. And on the north side of Montgomery County, on the north side of the city of Dayton, we were the only 24-hour career fire department. So if you think of a clock, we kind of sat at 11 o'clock.
Right.
And if it was the next county up in Miami County, the Bethel Townships, the New Carlisles, or you went west of Montgomery County, Harrison Township, Butler Township, Vandalia, et cetera, it was kind of great because we had the we had a full-time truck company, and that's where I fell in love with truck work.
Yeah.
I was like, this is cool. I can dig this. But what was neat back then, and we had a department immediately to our south. It was Mad River Township that eventually became Riverside. Dude, back in the day, because they were the jurisdiction between us, to a degree, us and the city of Dayton. Dayton wound up annexing so that we were neighbors. But there, man, Riverside, Mad River, woo, we fought a lot of fire down there, dude. And what was nice was we were the only full-time truck outside of the city of Dayton.
Right.
So we got to go to everything.
Yeah.
And it was, I had a lot of great guys. It's funny that talking about all these different places, whether it was Fairborn or Miami Township, Mass Fire Academy, OSTA, ADT, Huber, whatever I've been involved with. What's funny, and I think about your shirt here, I can take in, if you say Huber, I can name all those guys.
Yep.
If you say Miami Township, I can name all those guys.
I love that.
That's awesome.
And that's why I like this shirt so much. Because it's
Thank you.
oh yeah,
That's cool.
this guy, that's this guy, that's that guy, or
There's still plenty of available on the store if anybody's listening.
today only. But and even at FDIC, Firehouse, and
Yeah.
I can name these guys, which to me, that, like I said, that's why I like the shirt so much.
I love that, man. That really paints a picture, though, about the type of career you have and the investment you put in and the return you got too to make those friendships. And Dave, you're the type of guy, when we met, I'm very passionate, very into the job, and we're going to get into a lot of your teaching and instructing and the different groups and so on. But when we met, like, you could just tell, like, when you meet certain people, there's just a real love for the job, and then not only do they have a love for the job, but they have a love for the job, but the people that make the job good. And
100%.
you
100%.
certainly personify that. And I thank you for that, because it makes me want to be better. And for you, I never even thought of that with the shirt, right? When we came up with that, it was just the logo. And
yeah, it's the Band of Brothers, kind of idea.
Right.
And all
I
that.
mean,
yeah.
It is right, and
ask a military veteran to paint that picture, and they're going to tell you those names.
And that's, yeah.
But I'm sitting here and I'm looking at I get two sections of or two cabinets of challenge coins here, and I had to buy yours anyway.
What do you mean you had to buy?
I did. I sent away for it because I wanted to support you. But I look at these and I'm so proud that, with the exception of one or two, and if I bought one, it was for a fundraiser, type of thing, or something like that, or to help somebody out. But these have been given to me. I've got my daughters up there, retired Air Force Master Sergeant, from all of her stuff from my son, who's on my old job back home at Huber, fourth generation, and really got it going on, and that's where the whole OG thing comes in. But, going back to kind of what you were saying, and I really appreciate your kind words. But going back to Huber, that's where I learned that as good as you think you are, and as much as you've tried to do, you ain't all that. And to people out there, whether it's they're getting beat up by an administration that's, playing politics, or, they've gotten cut, or it's this, or it's that, or it's the other. Or in my case, when you learn you ain't all that, is when you go to a fire and you almost buy it. That's where I got a tremendous education of how compressed and weird time can get. so to speak. I will say God and my dad got me through it, in that we went mutual aid to a department north of us. Fire had been burning for some time. We had already had an engine there. We came, I guess, we would consider it like a second due truck, even though we were the first truck on the scene, but the number of apparatus that was already there. And it was a nice home. It was a big one-story ranch, basement, etc. Fire had started in the basement. Wind-driven fire. I mean, it was so cold. February, etc. So part of I want to say we were on a tanker op. Don't quote me on that. Somebody may say, no, you weren't. Well, that's what I remember. But anyway, we went in through a side entrance to the basement, like a fieldstone door, not a Bilko, but into the basement. Mm-hmm. And there was already like 6-8 inches of water on the floor. So, and I would tell this to people coming up, it's experience. What does that tell you? Right. They've flown a lot of water and never touched the fire. What does that mean? The fire's running. It's running unchecked. Bad things are going to happen. I had a Proby, and I said, you stay right here with me. So, and then I had my senior guy, great guy. We went into and I'm like, dude, there's a lot of water on this floor. They're not touching it. But we went in and we'd hit the fire and it would come back. It would hit the fire, it'd come back. I'm like, yeah, this just ain't getting it. Later learned that the individual, the story I was given, the individual had built a basement and built an apartment in the basement and covered it. That's where they lived while they were building the rest of the house. Gotcha. So you essentially, more so than a regular basement, you had, closets and cubbies and all kind of stuff. But, and again, I would go back to, and my dad kind of taught me this. I don't know if a whole lot of people know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, but if you don't look it up, you start running this Etch-a-Sketch in your head. Where you been? Where you going? Did you turn back? Did you turn left? Did you turn right? Type of thing. So we get pulled out of the basement, and our chiefs, because he went up and I believe kind of took command of the fire, and said, all right, we're going to go through the front door. We're going to save this section over here, go through the front door. And there was this, we could see ahead of us, like into the, I'm presuming, kitchen dining room, all of a sudden this big ball of fire. Well, what turned out happening was the back of the house had fallen off. And my senior guy comes up to me, hits me on the shoulder, and says, did you see? And he's gone. I mean, like you wave the magic wand and he's gone. And I'm like, and your mind goes, wonder where he went. Hello. And I got the Proby behind me, and I would not ordinarily take the pipe because I was the boss. You're not supposed to do that. This one just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So I got the Proby behind me, and I got two guys pumping hose, good dudes. Two brothers, actually. One that was on our department, another one was planning on getting on our department, but he was on another mutual aid fire. And the weirdest thing, and if I was talented like my wife or one of my daughters that could draw, I'd draw it for you right now. I looked in where the wall met the floor, there was a hole, and I could see orange. And I thought, well, isn't that odd? And then the next thing you know, I was gone.
Really?
And the floor let go, and I hit. And I remember going, boy, it's awfully bright in here. I mean, like this. It's this bright in here. I'm like, isn't that curious? And then I'm like, oh, there's my senior guy. And he's like face down in a heap. And then I went, oh, so this is what happened. So I grab him, and I'll testify, I felt the hand on my back turn me to the left, and God saying, go this way. And I followed that wall down, hit the next wall, doing essentially a left-hand pattern, got back into a room, whole lot of water on the floor, and I saw the same grand piano that I had seen the first time that we went into the basement. So I'm like, oh, the exit must be over here, exit stage left. Now I'm carrying my senior guy at this time, right?
Wow.
And and I get to the door, and the smoke's back, and I'm like, the door's got to be here somewhere. It's got to be here somewhere, you know, and the smoke's bouncing, and then I see the shaft of light, and it's like, oh, we're good. So I get to there. I start up I get to like the second stone step, and I look up, and I see two Huber guys who I didn't realize they had called more apparatus. Because back then, guys, there wasn't a Mayday. There was no Mayday policy. You didn't do that back. This was 1984. No, I'm sorry, 1988. But what was funny, as soon as I saw my two guys, Mark Howard and Steve Hupp, the adrenaline went, nope, done. I knew I was okay. So I dropped my senior guy on his face twice. It was like,
at that point, he's just happy to get out of there, I'm sure.
All I'm getting out of him is, and I was like, boom. And I'm like, wait. And I tried to pick him up again. That wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And boom, dropped him on his face. And I yelled up, I said, hey, Howie, can you give me a hand here? And they looked down and they were like, I learned later that the guy that was at the door had been an Army Ranger medic. He was at Grenada and stuff, one of the brothers. We went back in for the critique a couple of days later. And my senior guy and I, Dick and I, got transported. We got banged up, but we were okay. No big deal. Man, he kind of looked right through me. And he's like, you're dead. You're not here. And I'm like, whoa, stop. Whoa.
Yeah. Wow.
I said, no, we're good. We're good. And all that. It took a little bit. But yeah, you know, so, you know, going back to, you know, in my time, I'll fight fire as much as anybody. But it's like, you know, one of the best guys, one of the best guys in the business, Mike Galliano, from the Fab bunch out of Seattle, the Go No Go. You know, in retrospect, but 2020, that was a no-go. There was nobody in there. There was nothing left to save. You know, but it was what it was back then. And so I was very judicious after that and took a lot away from that incident about where, and the whole where you draw the line.
Yeah.
Like the one guy I was talking to last year, that only comes from experience, man. We try to put it in books. We try to put it in simulators. We try to put it in, you know, we try to make it convenient. And we talked about this in Texas. We try to deal with it with data and technology, and that ain't where it happens. That ain't where it happens. You know, I've talked to combat veterans, God bless them, that have done amazingly heroic acts. But they said, you know, that first time you get shot at, that's like trying to tell somebody what steak tastes like. Just.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Anderson Rescue Solutions. Anderson Rescue Solutions was founded in 2016 by former Philadelphia firefighter Tim Anderson. As an urban firefighter and rescue specialist, Tim found that the equipment available to him lacked the usability and practicality in complex, high-stress environments that rescuers often found themselves in. To combat this, he developed products based on his own experiences in the field, creating innovative, efficient gear designed to thrive in reality. The multi-loop rescue strap is a perfect example of one of these products. Made in America, this patented tool is used for rapidly harnessing firefighters or civilians in the worst conditions. Every feature is fine-tuned to meet the needs of rescuers battling low visibility, low dexterity, and high stress. The multi-loop rescue strap has been used in numerous real-world rescues for both firefighters and civilians, all across the country, and it is being increasingly adopted by fire, rescue, and tactical agencies as standard issue equipment. I carry one. I have carried one for many years. It is the most versatile strap out there. Check it out, the multi-loop rescue strap by Anderson Rescue Solutions. Tim Anderson, the owner and proprietor of Anderson Rescue Solutions, has become a dear friend. In fact, he's even been on the podcast several episodes ago. Dropped incredible information. He's super passionate about the fire service, about special operations, and he has built an incredible company and an incredible product. So because of our great relationship with Tim and Anderson Rescue Solutions, if you go to andersonrescue.com, you'll get 10% off if you use the promo code NFR2023. That's NFR2023 at checkout on andersonrescue.com. You'll get 10% off your order. And do me a favor, go over to their social media and check out Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for weekly news, product info, and other content in regards to Anderson Rescue Solutions. This episode's brought to you by Flame Decon. Developed specifically for firefighter decon, Flame shampoo, body wash, and soaps reduce your risk of getting occupational cancer. Live fire testing shows that carcinogens on your skin after a fire are removed and undetectable after using Flame. Flame Decon has made a product that not only does its job and does it well, but that you'll enjoy using. They smell amazing. They make your skin and hair feel great. I will be an absolute witness to that. I have used the product. Tara and I have known each other for quite some time. She has sent us product. We have used it, and it does take that smell of soot and smoke off of you immediately following a shower. It makes a difference. You can find Flame Decon products at flamedecon.com and use promo code NFR for 15% off your first order. That's promo code NFR for 15% off your first order at flamedecon.com. And for departments that are interested in departmental orders, more than one or two pieces of product, you can reach out to Tara directly at tara@flamedecon.com. She's happy to entertain any inquiries that you have. And this made me think departments need to protect their own, and protecting our own is also after the fire. Chiefs, purchasing managers, look into Flame Decon as a way of protecting our firefighters in and out of the firehouse. So check out Flame Decon at flamedecon.com. Use promo code NFR for 15% off your first order.
I think that
they're really trying to kill me. So, but.
Dave, I think it's a great point to bring up, though, is that because when you're telling me about this fire, I'm thinking about fires that have happened just in New York State alone, and some of them have unfortunately ended up as line of duty deaths. And for me as a lieutenant, when I'm responding mutual aid to other departments that are outside of Fairview's purview, where it's going to take us a minute to get there, that's one of the things I start running into the checklist is what's the part timer on this? How long has this building been burning?
Exactly.
We went to a fire one day that it took us 25 minutes to get there. It was all the way up in the north end of the county, and the call came in at 4 or 5 in the morning, and it was 8 o'clock when we went as a second due fast team. And I'm like, what's, and it just, and I walked up, and it was a very eerie thing, because I was I'm thinking to myself, if this has been burning it since 4, why do you need us? What are we here for? Not in a pissy way, but who's operating still in the building?
Exactly.
And it's great to have a story like this, because I'm listening to you tell this, the 8 inches of water in the basement, and how long it had been burning, and the fact that you get pulled out. I always get leery when people say we're getting pulled out. Why are we getting pulled out?
Right.
And then, we're going to redirect, and it's just, there's so many good tidbits to get off this. You can't describe what it's like when that bullet cracks past your head, and you can't describe to a vegan what steak tastes like, and that sucks for them. But these are the
bacon.
things, right? But these are things that for anybody that's out there listening, it's that checklist to start going through, because I'm always a believer of mental visualization and kind of preparing yourself, and so hearing this helps prepare the mind, so that if you're starting to see these things, hopefully
I agree
something
with you.
kicks off.
A
And for
thousand-
you to share that story is a huge
Well,
benefit.
And like Dave said too, though, right? I mean, take him back to his first fire where he was 18 and made the push. I mean, he would have never noticed there was water on the floor.
Nothing.
Right.
And in this situation too, Dave, thank God that your original push was through the basement stairs where you located the piano that gave you your way out. Because if you ended up going through that front door at the get-go, you wouldn't have found your way out that quick.
No. And
Or
if I did,
even have the presence of mind. With experience comes, with time and experience comes a much wider view. And so, the water and the landmarking and the building construction and doesn't feel right, go with your gut. Like that truly is only through experience.
well, and you just said something, Jeremy. You just said something. Go with the gut. If you've never had the experience, you've never had the qualifying benchmarks, the signs, the symptoms, your gut's not going to tell you nothing.
Yeah, but
you've got to have that.
I
from,
agree, but I also think too, like I've been in situations where I've had junior guys with me, and you could see they're not comfortable, and their guts telling them like, "Ooh, I'm not comfortable here," right? And it takes the ability to tell them, "Listen, it's okay, follow me, let's do this. My gut's telling me we're good. My experience level's telling me we're good."
right.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
Because if they've only been exposed, and unfortunately, I lived through that time where we were our own worst enemy. We were killing people right and left in training burns because, if 3 pallets are great, then 6 must be better. And, all the stupid stuff that went on that caused the standards to be written, that caused the limitation. And I would defer to Rob. I mean, firing sim ammunition versus firing ammunition is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
And you can do that all day, but until you get pushed with that, there's a couple of good books out there. One, Colonel Dave Grossman, called On Combat, which I think is one of the best books that any aspiring fire service leader, and don't confuse that with being promoted to lieutenant or captain, that senior guy, that leader in the company, that leader in the station, should be mandatory reading. I think, stuff by Jocko Willink and Babbitt, that should be required reading by anybody who aspires, because we don't have great ways of teaching leadership anymore. And I've seen it frequently. I had a situation where had recruit firefighters in one scenario, in one place, concrete and steel burn building, pallets, straw, banked down to the floor. The torches were doing a great job with what we wanted. This was not the individual's first training burn, but they get in there and they stop. And I'm thinking, all right, they're stopping. They're listening for the crackle. They, what they can see, what little lights coming through. They're seeing which way the smoke's traveling. We're going to run upstream, and this is great. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? You can move now. And they're like, well, it's smoky. I can't see anything. And you just want to go, I'm going to go to Taco Bell. But, but there again, who trained you? Where is this coming from? Because it is real. And I'm just not sure we've got great ways to teach people that, like you said, that gut feeling.
And I always talk about too, Dave, we talk about it a lot, is how do you teach initiative? I mean, you can teach skills, right?
Yeah, that's on Amazon, apparently. I'm telling you. Oh, man. Yeah. Whew, nice one.
You good?
Oh, yeah. Initiative? What's that? It's like, how about we do this? well, you didn't say to. Oh, sweet Lord,
Yeah, but there is that disconnect, and now more than ever, and and we have to find a way to work with it, not against it. And we as a fire service too have to change and adapt also to the way people learn today versus the way they learned 20 years ago.
And you're 100% correct. And that, and like you said, in Texas and such, we've discussed the generational thing. Our day, if you didn't have the initiative, it was like, well, we already ate supper. I don't know what you're going to do type of thing. And today that would be considered cruel. But one of the things I think, and I'm no expert at this part of it, but I've toyed with that idea. And I thought, well, geez, maybe if you just say, all right, here are 3 options. Which one do you think would be best fitting in this situation? People aren't stupid. They obviously think they're brilliant at certain things. They're very savvy when it comes to certain aspects. And it's like, all right, well, you have this, this, and this. Which do you think would fit this situation the best? And maybe more scenario based, et cetera, is what we have to look at. But
yeah, I'll tell you this though too. Real quick, Rob. I just say this. I feel so good though with National Fire Radio, how we get around and meet all these people. And I'll tell you, man, there is unbelievable talent out there. Young, aggressive, initiative-oriented firefighters out there. And so when we talk about this newer generation, I think we got to look at who's teaching them. What did you say before, Dave?
Yeah. Who taught you?
Right. Who taught you? Right. We're teaching these guys. We're teaching.
Right. And they're a direct product of that. And that's why I said, what you guys are doing is stunning. Is absolutely.
But it is exciting. It is exciting to see the Stephen Ellers of this world who, is a younger guy who just gets it, wants it, is hungry for it. And there's a lot of those guys out there. And I think their stories need to be told. And I think younger guys need to look at them and that they're shining and leading a path to say, like, listen, man, we don't need to be the millennials. Let's not be titled or group to a group. Let's just perform. Let's just do the job. Let's just love this job. And let's make those relationships. I mean, that's what it's about.
And you guys know better than I'm not sure who said this, but I believe it's one of the ones that have come up in latter day. Don't be on the job, be into the job.
Right.
And that's huge. And that's huge because I think that's another thing too, is that I don't know that they've been permitted, I don't know, to have pride in something. Because if you have pride in this, if you're proud of this, then that means somebody else isn't. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. But, maybe I've seen, and you guys probably have too, the one in rookie school or at the training that you're like, man, I know you've got the potential to do this. So you lean on them hard and you push them. You wouldn't push everybody, but you're pushing this one because this one's got that spark, that look. And then at the end of it, when they graduate or at the end of the session or whatever, like, wow, thanks. That was, if you hadn't leaned on me, I don't think this would have happened. Well, it happened because of you. We're just trying to provide, a path for you.
Yeah. So. Yeah, we can. Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say with the initiative aspect of it, we don't teach initiative. And one of the reasons I think is that, we've kind of gotten, with a lack of experience and a lack of fires, people get very caught up in that book way of doing things, especially new officers.
Yeah, that's all they know.
And they think they have to order people. And, that's one of the things that, I know a very dear friend of mine was in my wedding. His department that he works at now, the officers feel like they have to instruct and they have to tell the firemen everything they do. And I just can't imagine being a captain and thinking or a lieutenant and that's what I have to do. And then I got the position just because daddy was a chief. It's me, I tell my guys, whoever's working on my group that day, if it's overtime, it's there's going to be a lot of it right now, but they know what the expectation is of me as their officer. And like initiative is part of that because we don't have the luxury of not taking initiative. And I think it's a clear set of boundaries that you communicate with your people. And I often look back and it's like, it's almost like every NIOSH report has a couple of those key factors, and communication always seems to be one of them.
Huge.
And I think if we communicate and we talk to our people and we let them know what the expectations are, you know, like, I don't know, like it drives me nuts that like maybe that should be our next like on tap event is like initiative.
Well, I tell you, I think, and you know him, Chris Losi does a great job, you know,
Yeah,
leading from the back seat. And I think you've got to have a role model to learn how to have initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things we lack. And you absolutely perfect, Rob. You know, you can't teach it, but you have to demonstrate it. One of the discussions, and again, I go back to Texas, I think we had, was if you take the, you know, forgive me, the senior person, the senior man, quote unquote, what is the experience level in this day and age for that individual? They've got 5,000 EMS runs and 5 fires.
Yeah, they're alarm specialists.
And when you get to that scene where you need that first sergeant, you need that person, they don't necessarily have that either. And I think there's a huge gap. Not their fault. It's just not there. So, you know, what do they make up for it with? You know, do they go to trainings?
Right.
And again, I'm so blessed to be involved with OSTA and, you know, the stuff we've done with ADT, where people are going, and I don't know if you heard people say this, but we hear it all the time, constantly, is, wow, that's really cool. How come they don't teach that in fire school?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's not time. It's not this, it's not that. And what Jeremy, you said, it goes back to that boilerplate. This is what you have to get tested on. This is what you have to get checked off on, and then, you know, hit the floor. But
yeah, and I think too. I mean, this whole topic could just be a whole night in and of itself.
Oh yeah.
But I think, you know, part of it too is we have to allow people to take initiative. We have to allow people to make decisions for themselves, and then let them deal with the consequences, and we correct the decisions that were made.
100%. 100%.
Right. And I think what's happening is, you know, I can't fully fault these kids that are being spoon fed everything because we're spoon feeding them.
Oh, exactly.
We're not allowing, right. We're not.
And how are they getting taught?
That type of managing style where, you know, I hear it all the time. It's like, well, what do we do here? And it's like, whatever my officer tells me to do. And I'm like, wow, time out, man. Like, take him out of the equation. You're there by yourself. What are you going to do? And you get like, you know, deer in the headlights. And you're like, think about it. Like, you don't need to be told to tie your shoes in the morning when you put your sneakers on, right? You don't.
If they haven't been given those options, how do they know?
Well,
Right.
Exactly.
And if I was king of the forest, everybody coming into the American Fire Service would have to spend 6 months riding with Mo Davis in Houston.
I want to ride with Mo Davis.
Yes, are you kidding me? I want to go down and ride with him.
I just offered to carry his luggage. I told Steve, I said, if you ever do anything else again and you need me just to carry luggage or like drive one of the vans so the guys aren't late, like, I'll do it, man.
That's my job, carrying luggage. I'm the Crash Davis of National Fire Instructing.
So Dave, let's talk. We got off track a little bit, but I love the conversation. But I do want to talk about this. You you retired in 2004 off the job medically, right? You through some injuries on the job.
On the job, yes.
You retired off the job.
Injuries, surgeries, yeah.
Yeah, and not the one fire story you told is not the only near mishap you've had. I mean, you've had many, and
couple
here
and there.
You know, and I just think like stories like that though, like the value you brought through your story before is huge, because there were a lot of little cues in there that you know, you might take for granted in telling that story, but for a listener to take it in. I think there was a lot of value brought, and I thank you for sharing that story, because I'm sure that's not easy to talk about, and I'm sure.
Well, I'm going to do a shameless plug right here, right now, and I will tell you this, that, believe it or not, haunted me up until a few years ago. That one stayed with me for a long time. This this lady that honors me by letting me be her husband helped me through. It peaked one night really badly. It truly did. And unfortunately, it was while listening to a double line of duty death not too far from here that it struck me that I was kind of in the same boat as one of the guys who unfortunately passed. I said, I knew exactly what he was thinking. Been there, done that. I did, surrounded by fire. It's like, kid, this is not good. Where are we going? And she buoyed me. I mean, she truly, Susie, truly and abundantly, I mean, you've met her, truly and abundantly rescued me. And let me, it was pretty crazy. It let me get this thing out that I didn't even realize.
Sure.
That had been festering that bad for, how many years? 20 years, more than that. And one of the things, again, and I'll say this till you're sick of hearing it, I've been blessed and fortunate. I look at the guys like Rick George and the stuff he's doing with resiliency and pragmatic, not just, like you said, the book learning. I mean, this guy figuratively, takes people by the throat, and it's almost the stories I've heard from some people who are very close to me, going to SEER school in the military, you find out exactly who you are. And you're going to find out the easy way or the hard way. If you can get, if you go to SEER school, if you go to Rick George's school, if you do things like that, to me, and people are going, that's not easy. Well, it's easier than having to face it at a split second when you certainly weren't expecting it and don't know what the heck to do next, in which step to take. And the next step you take could be your last.
Yeah.
So, people like him out there having that, and during one particular time, and I'll share this with people. There was, I forget the climbing magazine or something. My one daughter was getting it. And I should tell people, besides Susie, we've got this tremendous blended family, my son and 2 daughters and Sue's 2 daughters. And what's cool is if we were all together and you didn't know us, you'd think it was all one family. So we're incredibly fortunate with that. But she got a magazine, and there was a guy that had written an article about PTSD from a mountain rescuer position. And I would tell people out there that if you've got that 1 or 2 or maybe more or whatever situation, because he was spot on. You sit there and you're having dinner with your wife and the TV's on, or, you're watching TV or whatever, and you're chatting, and all of a sudden you quit talking because you're looking at the auto accident they're showing on the 6 o'clock news, the double fatal, the triple fatal, the drowning, the this, the that, the other, and you go, and you focus, and you can relive sight, sound, smells, everything. And then, when they break to go to sports, then you're like, and you start eating again, and they're staring at you like, what was that? What was what? Yeah, it's a big deal. But what I learned from the article was it's okay to remember. You're always going to remember. We got that hard drive in our head, but you don't have to relive. And when you can detach from that, things get a lot better.
Yeah.
So
I thank you for sharing that. I think mental health is much more versed on it than I am. But I know that it is really and truly at the forefront of this industry right now. And, the fact that, years ago, you never talked about it. And now it's the importance of talking about it, and so on. And I found myself, Rob and I had a really interesting, just on a little sidebar, Rob's done a lot with mental health with different groups and so on, even way before National Fire Radio and all that.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand a lot of it. I'm not an emotional guy. I'm sure at some point something's going to come out of me somewhere, and it's okay. But Rob and I had a real good conversation in the car one night. We were going somewhere, and Rob really enlightened me on a lot of it, and the myths and the casual thinking of what it's about and all of that. And I really took tremendous value out of that. And I can't say this enough that, and I need to become more versed on it too. But I think it's important that everybody at least understands that there's help available and that it's not you. It could be anybody, and anybody, you need that help, it's available to you. And I think it's just so important to talk about and so important to throw out there, because we're just losing too many people due to these deals.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to not unlike what you were just saying. The generations handled it differently, and it was put up and shut up. And I think a lot of times they don't understand. We're great at building walls.
Yeah,
we are huge at building walls. What I found interesting though was probably after about 10 years of being retired, I noticed the walls started to come apart a bit. And it was like, I've never had dreams about fire or EMS or anything before. And then all of a sudden, I'd wake up in the morning and she'd be looking at me going, "You all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "It was like the WWF in here last night." She said, "You were thrashing and hollering." And I'm like, "I don't do that." And she's like,
Yeah.
But yeah, so, one way or the other, and like, Rob obviously knows it stays.
I always tell people that, especially in retirement, because like I worry about my retirees more than anybody. Like, I mean, if there's a group that because they'll say like Jeremy will say like, "Hey, I'm not an emotional guy," and he's actually a highly emotional guy. Like he is like, his emotions are having a good time, and he's always that fun personality. But when he steps away and that day finally happens, like I always tell guys, the best analogy I can give you is that it's the last day at the office, and eventually in that time set from when you hang that helmet up on the rack for the last time to whenever it happens, you're going to start clearing out those drawers, and you're going to take that desk drawer and open it up, and you're going to take and you're just going to be like, "What do we got here?"
Oh, 100%.
Oh man, this is some bad memories, and it's you won't be able to help. You can't close that drawer. You can't, and it's just going to come out. And
you are
just keeping that cognizant.
Rob, brother, you are so correct in that, and I realize, because when you leave the firehouse, there's still guys there, but you can't go back. They changed the lock combination on the door. It's not yours anymore. It's what we have this thing that it makes us who we are. That's who we identify with, because the neighbor doesn't say, "Oh, Dave is the up the street's the roofer." It's like, "Oh, Dave the fireman," or Rob the fireman,
Correct.
Jeremy the fire. You could be retired 10 years, get a DUI, cause a crash, and be on the news.
Yeah,
it's going to be Joe Schmo, retired fireman. It doesn't leave, and people wonder why we think it's part of us and why we carry it along so much. But no,
Dave, the other side of this coin too, though, right, is all these experiences that you've had over 40 plus years in the fire service, whether on the line, whether volunteer career, whether through instruction and training. You really put this. Not only did you have to battle your struggles with dealing with all the memories and incidents that you've dealt with, but you've also now taken that and brought it forward to educate others, right? I mean, you're so heavily invested in training now. You're so heavily invested in teaching and trying to better the industry by promoting the brotherhood and promoting training. I know that, you're big into, RIT operations, firefighter safety and survival. You work with on-scene training. You're part of the Massachusetts Fire Academy system, where you're teaching all levels of it and doing instruction on all levels. I'd love to talk about your background. We alluded to Texas a bunch of times through this where, you know, we really had some good times together with Affordable Drill Towers and Steve Sanguidoce, and so on. But maybe talk about life after the firehouse, right? I mean, we're just talking about how, you know, everybody retires and moves on, and it's what you do now, right? And the legacy that you're leaving. I think you're leaving an incredible legacy. And I'd love to talk about it a little bit about what you're doing.
Fantastic legacy.
Yeah, well, once again, you guys flatter me. You must be hammered already.
Poland Spring. Oh, you can't see it. It's the green screen.
So, I don't fish and I don't golf. So,
that's great.
Yeah, you know, the weird thing is, and I think maybe Rob and I've talked about it, but the only hobby I really have is I do Civil War living history and reenacting. And then I had to sit down one day and really look in the mirror and go, you went from a job where you slept with guys to three nights a week to where you sleep with guys on the weekend. They're, you know, I was like, huh, okay. Yeah. But no, I tell you, I got involved with the training aspect of it. A good friend of mine, Mark Chubb, who I was on Huber Heights with back in the day, he was a part-timer, you know, incredibly brilliant individual, actually went and was in the second or third tier of command in New Zealand Fire Services, but fire protection engineer, you know, par excellence, was involved with FDIC, and for whatever reason, forwarded my name to them. And I got a call from Bob Pressler. And I had met Bob at FDIC as an attendee previous years. Actually, we were both heading for the same cooler at the old Indianapolis Union Hall back in the day. And I see this Rescue 3 shirt, and I'm like, the Rescue 3? He says, yeah. So anyway, met him a couple of times after that, et cetera, et cetera. Him, Mike Lombardo, I mean, some of the guys that have just had the major influence on training, et cetera. From back in the day. And I get this phone call from him wanting to know if I'd be interested in teaching at FDIC. At first I thought I was, you know, okay, I only live like an hour and change away. So if I, you know, do you need help stuffing rope bags, filling air bottles, you know, whatever. But he wanted me to do some truck company operation stuff. And essentially that's how I got started, was with him. And as far as that goes. And the met some amazing people, as you guys well know, in that world. You know, 6 of the instructors back then, firehouse, fire engineering, you know, a lot of same instructors, people crossed over a little bit. You know, 6 of the instructors from the FDNY perished at 9/11. So that was, you know, very personal for a lot of us, obviously. Yeah. But kind of got my start there. And a guy named Greg Einsfeld from Rescue 3 was in our group. I learned more about forcible entry in one weekend than I had in however many years. You know, awesome. Just practical stuff. And tried my best to pass that along. You know, met guys, Greg Falkenthal, guys out of California. Guy's still a good friend today, Johnny Forrestal. He was on Rescue 1 in Boston at the time. And then he evolved actually and went with Safe IR doing, you know, thermal imaging. John's one of the most advanced, him and Bobby Athanas from Rescue 3 and Bobby Canavi, most advanced and brilliant thermal imaging people, the godfathers. You know, there's a lot of good people out there doing it, but man, they brought thermal imaging to the table for the American Fire Service, and kind of evolved from there. A couple of years later, you know, after hanging around in the mezzanine at the Hampton with story time, you know, you got the Presslers, Lombardos, Nicky Giordano, Billy McGinn, Andy Fredericks, you know, all these guys just, man, you sit back, get a pizza, and they're telling stories, and it's like, this is amazing.
Just to be the fly on the wall, right?
Yeah, I called, as I alluded to, one of my best friends, Mike Mull, and I called my kid. I said, get over here now.
Yeah.
I said, get over here tonight. I said, we're going to sit in the back row and you're just going to listen to fire stories, because you can't get that experience. We are never going to go to those fires that they went to, but you're going to pick up something every single time, and the Salkas and the Dugans and Rick Lasky and just all these people, the guys from Buffalo and the guys from Ray Hoff, Bobby Hoff, the guys from Chicago, just in all these different venues and different things. Just listening, to all this stuff. Champ. I mean, and I could say, boy,
Dave, I would love to just scroll through your phone and see the contact list in your phone. That's what I want.
But that's been the blessing for me. Like I told you, I made a list. I made a list here, just the Jim McCormick, Ray McCormick, all these guys that have touched my experience, my career, that I've been able in a good way to take something from and give it to my kid or give it to the classes or whatever. Like I said, I'm the Crash Davis of I've been to the show a couple of times, but being able to to pass that along and then continuing to meet people, like Jim Crawford, Chris Gay, the Worcester Gang, Kevin Maloney, Burt Davis, Mike McNamee, and all that.
But Dave, there's something about your teaching style, because you have a presence, and I watched that with you and Chief Crawford when I was down in Louisiana, and there are these other people who have influenced you, but you definitely have your own presence and tone into how you teach and instruct. Because, I showed up, take pictures, document training and document things and put it out there on National Fire Radio's platform. And I was like, all right, I'm going to pop in here with the OG real quick and see what he's doing. And I'll be here for 5 minutes. And an hour and a half later, I'm walking out of out of what you and Chief Crawford are doing, because both of you have unique experiences that you personally went through that come out, not directly. It's not like you weren't like, hey, this is what happened, or Chief Crawford didn't say this is what happened. But every student that comes in, there's something about your inflection and how you're instructing that they know that you are not just some guy who showed up to the rodeo a couple times and says, yeah, I can ride a bull. So I think that's a.
I don't ride them, I fight them.
Yeah.
But you're way too kind. I could sit here and tell you it's all smoke and mirrors, but I think every time I go out there and I appreciate what Jeremy says, I know who I've seen that it's like, this person, it's like you guys, this person's legit. They're telling me something that's valuable. I may not have the exact thing, but it's valuable and it's immediately usable. And I think, and in this day and age, I've had people say, oh, why don't you teach this? Why don't you teach? I was on the Ohio Task Force. I was, I had a great time there. I was a rescue squad leader back in the day. Learned a whole lot. But that's not, there's people a whole heck of a lot better, Can I put stuff together? Yeah, absolutely. But there's people a whole heck of a lot better than me to do that. Can I do engine work? 100% all day long. But you need to listen to John Newell, Ray McCormick, and some other people. I try to bring, one of the things I learned when I was on the FDIC advisory board years ago was the demographic of who attends FDIC. And I'm again going back to memory here. I may have to get the stone tablets out from the Smithsonian, but like 80%, almost 90% of the attendees at FDIC are from departments serving populations back then, could be different now, less than 30,000 people, 50,000 people.
Right.
That's the American Fire Service. It's not
Correct.
Chicago. It's not the
Yep.
FDNY.
Yep.
It's not Houston.
100% correct.
But these guys have the information and the experience, because there's a real good chance they went to that strip mall or something where they had that, outward opening door with the panic bar, metal door, metal frame, set and block. We tried this, it didn't work. They said, oh yeah, we used to do that, but we do this now. And I talked to Roger Kendrick or Joe Minahan from Boston, and it's like, hey, what do you guys do with this? And that's where, we get the information. But, Rob, I really appreciate you saying that, because my intent and my purpose, and I hope it has been, is if I don't have the answer, I'm going to try to steal you to somebody who does. But good God, man, look it up. Go out and go in the drill yard and do something. You're not going to learn it from a video. You're not going to learn it from a book. If Champ says, hey, try this, take out that, we've been talking a lot about rapid intervention and all that. Well, obviously I've had a couple Mayday scenarios, another one I wasn't directly involved with. Thank God I wasn't a part of it this time, but we had an individual go down. This was before we knew anything about harness conversions or anything else. And it was an abject disaster. The guy lived, but it was terrible. I swore it would never happen again. I would never do this again. So I attended, Ray Hoff's class, the Get Out Alives, the Salka classes, the Saving Our Own and all that, because we were never going to let that happen again. I work at the Mass Fire Academy with Joe Minahan. His father, Steve, passed in line of duty death fire. Anniversary was last week in a 9-alarm fire in Boston Harbor. You talk about somebody that's passionate. This guy grew up without his dad, and if somebody dogs it, he is right there in their face because he's lived it. He has absolutely lived it. So I try to take all of these and whatever it is. The other thing is I try to stay in my lane. I know what it's like to try to get a down firefighter out. I can do force splinter, I can do laddering, I can do primary search, I can do some tech work. I try to stay in my lane, and like when we went to Texas, when Steve called, he said, hey, do you know a guy? I said, yeah, give me Eric Hankins to teach pumps, give me Pags, give me Danny McCauley, give me these guys to do this stuff, because they are exceptional at what they do. And they have that panache, they have that je ne sais quoi to being able to look you in the eye and they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And they don't talk at you. They talk
Right.
to you and they talk with you. And, I was, and Richie Stack, I was so thrilled with Richie.
I loved it.
Isn't
I
he
met
a
him
great
for the
guy?
first time out there. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
What a guy.
It's like, give me these guys. And because I know these guys will make the difference from a training to a pretty significant experience. And, watching some of the attendees coming back going, wow, I know they're going to keep that for the rest. But the best part is, who are they going to show?
And the people I get back to.
Yeah, this could go on for generations. But I thank you, Rob, for what you say. It makes me feel that, I look back on the legacy of my granddad and my dad, and that, hopefully we're doing it the right way. And I want people, like I said, I forgive me. I know it's one of the up and comers. Be into the job, not just on it. So,
well, I like your statement. It's valuable and it's immediately useful.
That's what I want.
That's where that's why I ended up getting hooked in that day, because like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, this is just gonna be search rope, should be pretty easy. And I'm sitting there like videoing this stuff. I'm like, well, I'm gonna be showing this to my crew. If this is, but like, that's exactly what it was all about. So I think that's, like I
Because
said, it's.
I suck
Yeah.
at theory. I
You know what
truly
else
do.
we need to do, though? We need to make sure that these younger kids know the names that you just rattled off for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There's becoming more and more of a disconnect in this fire service where who are the leaders for the next generation? I grew up reading the articles. I grew up reading fire engineering 4 times cover to cover each month, and then I would never throw it out. Now I read Mike's column and I put it on the back of the toilet and send it to recycling the next month. I'm going to be honest. It's not the same. It's a different world these days, right? And so we need to get that Rolodex of Dave Gallagher. We need to make that a living testament to who these guys are and the lessons they brought to the fire service so that people can learn the names and the theory and the practicality behind what they knew or what they learned, what they digested, and what they taught. And I think that there is a big disconnect today about who are the idols. We talked about it before. How do you take initiative without having a
role model or a mentor?
Role model.
Yeah.
Who are the role models today?
I mean, I can't begin to tell you the first time, when I was fortunate and blessed enough to be an FDIC instructor and strolled in and into the mezzanine at the Hampton for pizza. And I looked at this crowd and going, what am I doing here?
I feel that way all the time with what we do.
No, but
I do. Dave, I'm being totally honest with you.
And I guess I could get that. It's like a
feeling.
It is, but I tell everybody I carry their luggage. But
that's right.
But that's one of the things where Aaron Heller and OSTA, Rusty Ricker with On Scene with New England Fools, these guys put that out there. And what I'm happy to see is they're not jerks about it, but they will call people out. I remember when somebody started, posting the garbage man doesn't get excited when he comes around the corner, and all of a sudden, we were going to give him a day or two, and then it was like, yeah, who said that? Who said that? Where did that come from originally? Or if you put out the fire, you don't have to jump out the windows, and that type of stuff. And we've seen stuff copied. And like I said, I like to stay in my lane, as it were, because we've seen a lot of people go a lot of places. I mean, I don't know squat about airport firefighting as an example. So I'm not going to do that. Do I know people that can do that? Sure I do. But it's really great that you say that, and hopefully some of these people take it to heart. I think part of the issue is, and we've got some cool retirees, we've got guys that I wish, for the love of God, I wish we could drag to seminars again. I mean, we got the Ted Corporandis that retired out of San Francisco. This guy saw some work, We got the Mark Wesseldines out of the FTNY, one of Andy's best friends. Jay Camella out of Oakland from back in the day. So much powerful information and great instructors that, and going back to my first attending FDIC, attending Firehouse and these hands-on sessions, I think that's where it became a driving force for me. I wanted to be immediately usable. I don't, like I said, I suck at theory. Ask my wife. Theory is, no, I am not good at theory. I said, I drag my knuckles and it's black and it's white and that's it. But these guys were tremendous, and they were there during the fires. There's a lot of people, I believe, from what I see, that they want to achieve, they want to contribute, they want to try to make things better, but they're not there with credentials yet because of what we go back to, the E word, the experience. And I wish they would go back. What is George Santayana? Those who do not remember the past are condemned to relive it. Unfortunately, we see that from time to time. I've asked instructor classes, level instructor 1 classes. I said, can you tell me about the Waldbaum's fire? Can you tell me about the Hackensack fire? I said, well, can you tell me anything about Coos Bay, Oregon and Hackensack? Nobody knows because nobody told them to care. So that's where you guys come in. You guys come in and say, because how many people can I reach just standing up, bumping my gums in front of a class versus what you have to offer and can spread this out. And I challenge somebody right now, whoever's going to listen to this, tell me, figure it out. Tell me what happened at Coos Bay, Oregon and Hackensack, New Jersey. Tell me what happened at Keokuk, Iowa. That's everyday fire department stuff. Over 90% of this country, that's everyday fire department stuff.
Right.
Manliness, I think I never pronounce it correctly. Manliness, New York.
Yep.
So I apologize for flubbing the pronunciation. Read what happened there. That's the way we get better. That's the way we get better. But Rob, thank you for what you said. It was an honor to be on this job, and I'm gonna lie, I miss it every day. I know I can't do it anymore, but I miss it every single day. I miss, it was funny when my eldest daughter was talking about retirement from the Air Force because of what she did in her incredible talents. I said, what 3-letter agency are you going to go to work for? And she goes, I'm not. I'm like, man, you're going to make serious money for what you do. Right. And all that. She goes, because I'm not going to be able to do what I did in the Air Force. And I said, I don't get it. She goes, well, let me ask you something. She said, what did you like about going to fires? I said, well, one, I liked being the intervention. I liked being the, I don't know, what would you call it? I liked the attack. I liked that. And I liked at the end being able to see what I did, how I did it, whether I did it right, whether I did it wrong. We get in this job immediate feedback. Feedback. Because we know if that line ain't getting it, it's immediate feedback. That's right. Bigger line or make a bigger hole. And she goes, that's why I can't go to work for these agencies. She goes, what I do, I see the immediate effect right now. She goes, I go to work for one of these agencies. I may never see the effect, or I might find out 20 years down the line.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I never thought of it that way. But we are one of the few, and Rob alluded to this earlier. We are one of the few entities that get to see exactly how well we do right then and right there. And I don't know, I think it's pretty powerful.
I think so too. And I think you hit it on the head. And, I know we could just go on and on. We've been going for an hour and a half already, believe it or not.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. All right. What I'm upset because I know we could go for another 6 hours. So we're definitely going to have you back on another episode for sure. But I do want to ask you a question before we kind of sign off and so on. And one, thank you for your real candidness tonight. I mean, you certainly put it out there for everybody tonight. And I thank you. Behind everything you said tonight was true emotion. And that for me means the world, for you trusting us with your story, or a fraction of your story tonight. But I want to ask you this. And you're still so involved with the Fools organizations, with training, the different training groups, with affordable drill towers, and so many things on your plate. Where are we headed? How's the fire service? Are you enjoying it? And if so, what's the good? Because I think the job is still good. And I think, talking to you tonight and seeing the emotion coming out of you and hearing the Rolodex of friends that you have, I want to take what you can offer and bundle that up and share that with everybody, because I think it's infectious. And I think that the relationships you forged over the years with the experience that you have, I think that needs to be shared. And I think that's what makes this job good. And I'm just curious your take, and everybody is naysaying everything these days in the world that we live in today, with so much change and the need for instant gratification, the need for instant change. There's no discussion anymore. What can you tell me about the fire service that you see that maybe going forward you can instill some light or values into, typically our younger listeners that are listening to us?
I think as long as a line is properly charged, properly stretched, the doors forced, the vents done, to me, that's in my perception, that's the best thing in the world.
I love it.
We're making, people are still going to fires. People are still making grabs. I think a lot of us, past, present, and future, they want to be job town. They want to go to 3 fires a day. That's not the reality, but it is what it is. But as long as they are ready to do that, as long as and I know there are a lot of them that are ready, but I hope somewhere along the line, they understand exactly what that means. Very dear friend and confidant, Dave LeBlanc, it's about them. It truly is about them. And as long as an organization uses that as its mantra, I believe we're always going to be good to go. We're always going to be needed in some fashion. Will it change just due to technology? Will it change due to necessity? I don't know. Is it going to become the emergency service department? It may be, but somehow, someplace, somewhere, somebody's going to have to go in and make a grab under lousy conditions, and somebody's going to have to stretch a line and throw a ladder and get a door open and get the place opened up. And as long as there's that need for that one person, and wherever it may be, then I think we're good to go. And as long as there's people there to answer that call, then I think, that's, to steal your slogan, that's solid brothers doing solid things. And nothing gives me greater pride than to say, yeah, I was a fireman.
Yeah.
Outside of my family, outside of my family, but, and I know there's going to be guys I know from back in the day going, you're such a goof, as we all do, but we still are in contact. When I hear combat veterans talk, and I remember my dad's bomb group reunions, dude, it's the same stuff. It's the same stuff, because somewhere along the line, something bigger than us hung in the balance, and we met it head on. Who said that?
Dave Gallagher.
No, somebody much brighter than me. I don't know, a philosopher, I don't know, could have been whoever. You know, you really don't know what living's like until you've almost died. And I think anytime we roll out the door, and the people rolling out the door today, you know, the town here in Holton, Massachusetts, I've seen these guys work. There's some truly, truly great folks here. And I mean, people, and, you know, I'm like I said, I'm incredibly mediocre, but people that I certainly would go down the hallway with, that I would say trust to do that. And if we can keep saying that about people we know, about the next generation, that you would go down the hallway with them, I think that's like hearing a combat veteran say, yeah, I'd share a foxhole with them. I don't know that there's a greater accolade for those of us that know what that's about. And, you know, I haven't seen some of these guys in how long? But I know if it was, you know, in the next 5 minutes, we'd be there for each other.
Yep.
And I don't know that it gets better than that. But as long as somebody is willing to make that stretch and willing to make that hallway, then yeah, we're good.
I love it. And I think that sums it up. Yeah, we're good. I love it, brother. David, thank you, man. I thank you for being on tonight. This time flies by, and we could go for so much longer, and we will.
Well, maybe you can use it for filler.
You're ridiculous. But I cherish our friendship, and
as do I.
You know,
Thank you
having
so much.
you here tonight and just getting some of your background and some of your story. And like, man, you can hear it. You can see the emotion. You can see it in your face, and you can hear it in your dialect. You know, you love the job, and you love everything about the job, and I think it's infectious. And I think that for you, go out and tell your story. Keep telling. Keep sharing that Rolodex with people. Keep putting people in key positions. As you said, I might not be the guy, but I can get you to the guy.
I'll get you to the guy. Absolutely.
You're my guy, and I appreciate everything that you do for us.
Well, you didn't ask me the question you said you were going to ask me.
Uh-oh.
Where'd the OG come from?
I thought, Rob, where were you on that?
I was listening to the OG.
All right, listen.
So,
let's go. Let's have it.
All right. So the OG came from, there had to be a separation because when my son got on the job and worked his first tour, there was young Gallagher and old Gallagher. So there's OG and YG.
There it is.
That's how he became the OG.
And not original gangster.
It is in my book.
Yeah.
My book.
Well, Dave, thank you.
My gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. I'm flattered beyond words, and I hope it contributes. So.
What an awesome night. And I'm excited to get this up and to share this with everybody. And just thanks for taking time out of your day to hang out with some friends and tell some stories. It means the world. So.
Absolutely, brother. Well, God bless you guys. Be safe. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep doing
Thanks,
what you're
Dave.
doing.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Dave.
it so much.
Have a
Rob,
good night,
take us
fellas.
out of this thing, will you?
All right, man. Well, hey, everybody, this is Rob Jeremy from National Fire Radio with the old Gallagher, actually the original gangster, David Gallagher. Thank you once again for being on the show with us tonight. It's this was fantastic. So
Thanks for having me, guys.
we'll see you guys out there, and don't forget to hit up the online store for merchandise and
Plug it.
this
Plug
awesome
away, Rob.
Brotherhood shirt. So we will see you guys later.
Thanks, guys. Have a
Take
good
care.
night.
National Fire Radio.